What is up, down and sideways, you absolutely fantastic individuals? It is another epi of League on Black. Eric and Mark here with you guys for week 3 of your global power rankings. And I preface this entire episode by saying, how is the LCP only in week 1? They've only played 1 week. I guess they're heading into week 2, but we need more games because I gots to have the Flying Oysters on this list.
It's pretty wild that they have not yet started the split out for getting to MSI and figuring everything out. But I guess the realization that there still is quite enough time before MSI to fit a split in. And get
it ain't May this year.
No, it ain't May this year. It's absolutely going to be that late June, early July event. So still some time for it, and definitely one of those ones you got to keep in the back of your mind. The Oysters and some of the other squads still in the LCP, because you know that that is a league that can compete once we get to these international events.
And it's a team that can eliminate North American squads, which is why we've referenced them, because we got 2 NA homies hanging out in the 1920 spots this week. Obviously, 100 Thieves, I think they were actually here week 1, so they're back on this list after a solid super week of action. And of course, Team Liquid not only just going 1-2, but losing a game and handing the first win to Disguised means they are only by the fingernails holding on to being on this list.
I'm saying just the pinky. It's the single fingernail from the pinky.
And it's only Jan's fingernail.
Yeah, exactly. It is the most important one, hanging on for Team Liquid, barely getting this spot, and then ahead of them, as we talk about, you have 100 Thieves still in this one. I feel okay about having these LTA teams here, and certainly a different story when you're talking about 100 Thieves getting back into this territory, and TL, again, hanging on by that pinky fingernail into this last spot.
And it's, again, I don't know what Team Liquid can do to kind of climb back up here. It's obviously basically only getting wins against FlyQuest or Cloud9 going forward. Same for 100 Thieves, really, to actually have any semblance of confidence in any of these other teams in the LTA. Then we kind of have this trio of middle-of-the-pack teams in both the LCK and the LPL, starting with FPX, who got to climb up after some impressive wins against some top-tier squads in the LPL. BNK Fearex, obviously we talked about the win, the upset against T1, but now they follow that up with a loss to Nongshim. So Nongshim still just a little bit ahead of BNK.
And it kind of lessens the leapfrog that you might have been expecting, given our LCK rankings on where BNK were able to climb up. Again, you have that loss to Nongshim. It does change things a little bit more, and especially then also just realizing the step up, the difference in what exactly goes into the evaluation process when you're talking about your regional power rankings, and then stepping into that global scene where we are putting it all together. BNK finding themselves maybe a little bit lower than you would have liked to with the way that things have been going the last couple of weeks, but still good to get them represented here in the list.
Yeah, it was definitely a hard pivot of momentum, losing in the fashion that they did to Nongshim. A clear step back or a little bit of regression. How about Weibo Gaming coming back onto this list? I truly did not think we'd be seeing them back on here after how rough a basically 2-week stretch this squad had. I think they fell to 1-3 at one point and really looked like they were falling off the map. But this week it's a series win against both NIP, and the even more impressive one is JDG, because the way they clinched this series was absolute, no doubt, dominant fashion, which is basically not anything we've said about Weibo since last year.
It's been a while since we've had to talk about Weibo in this type of regards. They make a change in the support position, and you see the result come through in the way that play has been for not just the bot lane, but for the rest of the team. And the communication, I think, is the big thing to keep track of with a squad like Weibo. That communication is there. They are on point and all with together. This is a team that can put that motivation, can put that energy out on the Rift, that is taking down teams like, as you laid out, NIP, and even more so the JDG head-to-head, where it was a very clear win for Weibo at the end of the day.
And obviously, Tien is a polarizing figure to talk about in the jungle. Yeah, the new support comes in and immediately the team looks better, but really it's more the 3-split format throws Xiaohu off a little bit, because now Spring Tiger comes in the second split. He's not there initially. His head's got to be all over the place.
It definitely throws off the timing of the peaks that we have known from him as an individual player in his career, when that focus, when that mojo, whatever it is, gets into that zone where we are getting those performances. Starting to see more of that for this Weibo Gaming squad in the LPL. And again, taking down NIP, taking down JDG the way that they did, you better be keeping your eye on this Weibo team as we move through these next 2 weeks, as they keep putting together a resume that is going to impress in the LPL.
We're taking a close look at the biggest sizzling, soaring climb of the week, and that is Cloud9 after a clean, really clean, like squeaky clean 3-0 weekend against their two main rivals in Team Liquid and FlyQuest, which means FlyQuest just gets the little bump down because Cloud9 comes in and takes their spot, deservedly so. This was they weren't close even in these main rival matchups, and of course it's best of one, so we're taking the entirety of it with a grain of salt, but they absolutely put up in the matches that showed up for them.
Yeah, this is a situation where you would have seen a bigger gap between these two type of situations had it been a best of 3, a best of 5 type of scenario. Best of 1, you do get that leg up, but not necessarily to a significant degree when you're looking at Cloud9. But having them in this type of territory of the global power rankings does mark a significant turn for this organization, for this group that they have assembled here. The young talents of Thanatos and Loki in their solo lanes, the veteran bottom lane of Sven and Vulcan, and then Blabber, who has become a veteran himself, I think, at this point in his LCS LTA career, and what he can do for this Cloud9 team. I think you're seeing it all pay off and all work out exactly to plan that Reaper and everyone else would have wanted for this Cloud9 team starting at the set of the year. Seeing that progression from those two solo lane players and how it is all interacted and incorporated with the rest of this team, it is a very good sign for Cloud9 to have them performing the way that they are already in this spring split.
Seems like they're a little bit ahead of schedule already, again, with Loki coming in as that new mid laner, but really the theme between them and FlyQuest is probably the two front runners for MVP are guys who are very familiar with that, and that is Blabber and Inspired on FlyQuest so far.
Yeah, and Inspired had a pretty good conversation talking about himself and probably listing Skewmon over in EU for G2 as the two best junglers in EU, NA, and mentioned Razork isn't quite there, so maybe a little bit of shade as well thrown into that interview from Inspired that we all know and love. But I think this is a great check-in for the LTA to have both of these squads here, and especially for Cloud9 to be ahead of schedule, as you talk about, to be at this point representing and challenging and pushing these top teams like a FlyQuest that is waiting for their 6th member that they are adding for that 3rd split. That could be that extra wrinkle.
Who knows
in the
if that'll be good or bad for them, but
yes, but we know it's going to change things up in the LTA, and things are already changing with Cloud9 rising to the top.
Last one on this list is G2, and it might seem like an overreaction to drop them out of the top 10 after one single series, but remember, G2 has played the least amount of games so far in the entirety of the LEC, only 4 best of 3s to their name, so this is like 25% of all their matches, so seeing them lose 2-0 to BDS is enough to knock them out of that top 10, but still very comparable to the best of the best, at least within the LTA.
And it was a very strange 2-0 loss to BDS at that point, not taking anything away from BDS, but as we talked about, it was very much a unidentifiable focus on going in on split push and composition in this point, and not really having it work out in any type of way in both of these games against BDS. So almost seems like a one-off type of bad performance in that regard. And as you said, there is still so much in front of G2 and what we already know about them that you still can hold on to a position like this.
They got the banger matchup against Fnatic this next week in the LEC. So that's obviously going to have huge implications on the power rankings for next week. Pretty much every match on the Rift seems like huge implications for T1. And of course, that's because of the incredibly passionate yet toxic fan base that follows T1. But at least for now, the loss to BNK means they are just barely the same level that Team Liquid's hanging on to being on the board. T1 is hanging on to the top 10.
It's almost picture perfect. Exactly. Number 20 hanging on, and number 10 hanging on as well. If it's Jan, I don't know who it is. It's probably owner at this point, given that he has been the most consistent member for
Or
T1
it
during.
might be Scar from the Lion King effect with Guma coming to help them up and actually throws them into the wildebeest herd.
And Zeus looks on from the shadows, all happy. Oh, yeah, of course, this is the way it's going. It's crazy that this is a negative, a down, all the whatever it is when you're talking about T1 being the 10th ranked team in a global power ranking. But that's just the situation that we are in. We have seen some struggles from this team outside of just talking about that main conversation point about Smash, Guma, who's in, who's not. I don't even care, to be honest, about who's in, who's not, because both Smash and Guma are premier level ADCs, I think, in the LCK. So you should have a guy who's more than good enough to get you in a competitive fight, even against some of these top tier teams, if the rest of things are going right for T1. That's the problem, is that you have this issue, you have a confusion, question mark, drama around Smash and Guma, and then everything else is also not operating at the level it has to be a championship tier team like T1 has identified themselves as.
Yeah, the AD carry roster shuffle is really a smokescreen for what the actual issues have been for this T1 squad because, yeah, I really don't think it matters which one of them is starting. And as we've talked about before, the drama behind the scenes is probably having the bigger impact than which player is actually playing on the Rift. But, I mean, it's T1. We still expect them to bounce back as the split goes on. Fnatic, top Western squad of the week, as we alluded to. Yes, it was some subpar teams they've been beaten up on lately, but that combined with G2's O2 is enough for them to get that bump up.
And I'm invested in this one after just talking about the interview with Inspire, talking about, hey, me and Skumon, we're the front runners for EUNA. Razork, he can be a lose condition when it gets to these important games. I'm not going to say he's not got a little bit of truth in there, but if you're someone like Razork, that would fire me up. That would get under my skin and really want to make sure I'm getting these big time performances for my Fnatic squad, and especially with G2 circled on that calendar right around the corner. That's a big one. Again, we talked about it with G2. Even more so for Fnatic is this one an important one to secure and lock down for yourselves.
Yeah, the timing on Inspired's comment seems like some collusion to just motivate Razork in that head-to-head as they go. Maybe they're actually still buddies behind the scene. But ahead of Fnatic, we're absolutely paying attention to the unbelievable ending that was the weekend for IG and JDG. And I think people are overreacting a little bit for JDG. Listen, we pumped them well out of the top 5 here, but now they're saying they're no good. Scouts washed. They were never a good squad, but they were 2 Nexus autos away from taking down IG, and if they win that series, they're still ahead of IG on this list.
It's one of the crazy revision histories that happen with anything like this or any down period or type of results. People, they lose track of the bigger picture. They lose track of what have you done for me recently type of thing, realizing that, well, there's a little bit more beyond recently as well. That goes into factor for some of these things. And for a squad like JDG, they just simply throw them out right now. It's over. There's no coming back from this type of situation. Is far too early, far too harsh of a situation to be grading on them. We know we have seen this team find their way, and I think a big part of it is going to be with the coaching staff. So much CV Max, so many times with his team finding that right motivation. And I think right now they don't have that right motivation, that right lock-in factor that just pushes them over the edge. Because of course, I think anyone can get from the outside looking in. A lot of talent here with this team, and especially Pays is the guy you're going to identify big time with this team as that driving engine. I like him to get a little bit of help because he's driving a lot.
Yeah.
But if he got a little bit else from the rest of the team, I think you're finding easier avenues, more comfortable paths to victory compared to the tightrope we've been walking here for the last week and a half, I'd say, for JDG.
Yeah, and it feels like Ale hasn't been focused more or been more involved in what some of these drafts and comps are going to be, and that was when JDG was looking better after I think a 3-1 start earlier on in the year. IG is, you want to talk about mojo, this team probably shouldn't be 5-3. They got some messy, chaotic games, but that's just the IG mantra and has been going back to the first stint of Rookie in the Shy.
And I think this is just one of those ones where is it just something that comes with the territory, comes with this unique concoction of players and strategies and all sorts of skill set that you are going to have this type of variance. You will have this up and down, and you have to accept it, but you need to know, can you find ways to make it more likely that it's an up than a down type of situation? And that's, I think, where you're going to have to find through this veteran team, can they really lock it down and find that performance, find those strategies that help them more so than are hurting them in some of these situations.
Only squad that didn't move a little on this list is BLG, sitting there at number 6, and it feels like they're hovering on the fence, on the precipice. Are they going to get back to that title contender form, or has the rest of the LPL caught up to them? That's what the next week or two is going to show for this team.
Yeah, and I think the answer actually is going to be more so that the rest of the LPL has caught up to a BLG, whether that's a BLG coming back down to earth or the rest of the LPL rising up against, what they knew as that top dog in the LPL. I want to see a little bit of that mixture, though, a bit of that pushback, because I do think it is a case of the LPL getting better, but I want to see BLG say, okay, that's the new level. We can get up to that level and still be one of these top tier competitive teams. That's, I think, the challenge for BLG at this point heading into next week.
The challenge for the new top 5 heading into this one, a couple of new squads. Well, TES was already here, but Dplus Kia into the VIP room, and I know not the cleanest series against DRX, a few near stolen pentas, a 2-0 against another weaker squad in DNF this week, but they've been serviceable at the very least, and the combo of some of those middle tier, JDG and BLG not looking that great is enough for Dplus to sneak in the back window into the VIP room.
It's the student that just does their homework every night. They're taking care of it. Yep, everything's done. Put it away. I'll be at school tomorrow. Meanwhile, JDG, you know what? I need another week on that book report. I'm sorry. And everyone else is slipping behind in the teacher's eyes. Here's Dplus Kia coming in. Here's the homework, and here's an apple on your desk first thing in the morning.
I knew Showmaker was a teacher's pet. I knew it, man.
Oh, of course. It's perfect, and I'm very happy to have Dplus Kia in this pod. I think the stable elite of the LCK rising through to claim number 5 in the power rankings, and then right above them, top esports. If this was a global, this was only LPL, maybe even higher for top esports the way things are going. There seems to be a massive difference between how they are able to just absolutely laser focus in back home compared to whatever top esports appears, top esports B, top esports C, whatever it is, version that we're getting at the international events. It's very different back in the LPL. Jackie Love popping off, and of course, Kanavi doing Kanavi things in the jungle. It's exactly what we talked about heading into this year, about what you dreamed the possibility was going to be for top esports, adding a high-powered player like Kanavi into the jungle. These are the results. Eat them up.
Yeah, he's on a fast track to yet another MVP in the LPL. This series against NIP, and then going back to the BLG series, he was the best player throughout that series. Absolutely insane series against NIP, by the way. They fall down 18-2 in kills, down 7K. Miraculous base defense extends the game for 30 minutes, and then they proceed to still lose it on their own Nexus push before coming back and stomping NIP in Game 3. So that's just the LPL, baby.
How do you go through that roller coaster? 18-2. You climb yourself back into the game, only to throw it away again. And then you say, okay, a 5-minute break. Let me get a juice box, maybe a cookie, see how things are going. All right, Game 3, lock in. And it's over. It's done. Done and dusted. Top esports take control. Pretty wild stuff, but very happy to have them occupy our top 5 before we get to the top 3, which is unchanged, unmovable. They have stayed very steady in how impressive they are.
Yeah, and obviously we've only done a few of these, but first time the top 3 has remained stable. Anyone's Legend didn't have much on the schedule. Just I think it was just World Elite that they handled with business, but honestly, even looking at top esports, I mean, you look at that NIP series, IG has some insane games. AL is the most consistent and reliable LPL team right now.
Yes, I think that has to be the justification for this one. And I think part of it is, yes, maybe you're not getting quite the excitement, quite the fireworks that you do get with a squad like a top esports. Even further down in the LPL, you want to go BLG at their best, JDG at their best, whatever, right? You can pick them off. Anyone's legend is absolutely the horse that you're betting to get you through this race, making it to the end type of situation. The consistency and greatness that we have seen from them at that type of level is a combination that isn't equaled right now in the LPL.
Hey, sometimes you lose a finger lighting fireworks. So anyone's legend, happy to maybe not bring that drama sometimes. They still are a very exciting team to watch, but they're much more methodical, and you are confident that they're coming away with wins on the Rift. I'm very confident that after surviving the bro landmine, Gen G is going to be in control for the rest of the series, the rest of this split, and Hanwha Life as well. Both of these squads now really in absolutely fine form, that they look unmatched in the LCK.
I like you mentioned the bro landmine waiting there for Gen G. They didn't
even drop a game. 2-0.
Oh no, they had them full on minesweeper out. They dismantled everything, moving on through to the promised land of the LCK, and following right behind in those footsteps is Hanwha Life, making sure not hitting any of those landmines themselves. Both teams looking fantastic. Both teams primed for whenever we do get one of these marquee showdowns again in the LCK.
And it's an easy week ahead for Gen G. We're talking DN Freaks and DRX. That's the two bottom squads in the LCK. So they got to do some more sweeping for binds this week.
That's a 4-0 week is the expectation, and I think maybe we should put a time limit on that 4-0 as well, on how quick it should be. Is the expectation here for Gen G. But you're right, could be a secret landmine type of situation. Gonna have to hold out and see if Gen G and Hanwha Life can make sure they get through another clean week.
We do get the Dplus Kia Hanwha showdown over the weekend. So obviously, that anytime you get a pair of top 5 squads on this list, you know we're gonna have big sweeping changes on the list.
And I'm waiting on that matchup to see what picks are coming through. What's the spice? Where's the interesting angle? Because Showmaker's going to want to have something cooked up for Zeka. And meanwhile, you're going to be having Zeus thinking about what he can bring into this one to be that big-time member for Hanwha Life. Very excited about that one for the weekend.
Banger of the week potential for sure in that LCK heavyweight tilt. But that is it today for League Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you, absolute gorgeous individuals. Thanks for hanging out as always, and we will catch you on that flippity flip.